how he gets into 3 different markets, and then how he exits them as well. So US CPI, this was at a period when it was extremely volatile. This was after that super volatile week. So ordinarily you would not expect S&P to move on this. S&P usually on CPI might move a handle because the fact the euro moves around a bit, T-notes move a little bit, S&P might move a touch. So you're normally expecting to trade bunds, maybe T-notes, depending upon what you're more comfortable with. Bunds at the time reasonably well set to go lower in the fact that we'd, from a profile point of view, traded out this dip of volume just here. So bunds really was quite well set to go either direction. But what we had seen is this was a push out of range that was then failing to really continue higher. So bunds to the downside looking reasonably good. US 5 years to the downside was running into a lot of support. So a little bit of a trickier one to try and hit. So we'll go and have a look at the video, see how he executes this, and again watch for the order that you hit the markets in. You've got to be very ready for that. You've got to be very sort of clear on exactly what you're going to hit and in what order you're going to do it. So here we go. This is waiting for the CPI. CPI 0.1 beat across the board. So bunds dropped 15 ticks, hits the bund at the low. 5 years dropped towards the lows as well. S&P's already gone a long, long way. That started up around mid 70s. So we've gone 15 handles in the S&P, then get short. So more size goes into the bund, then into the 5 year. 5 years struggling here because the fact it's running into a lot of support. Whereas the S&P is still dropping. That's got all the volatility in it. Bunds down towards 13, towards the lows of the day, towards a decent level. 15s to 10s was the level. S&P now approaching a level down at 45s. And so that's where he's reduced the size right the way down. We actually now have a look at a bit of a fade trade. So the other two, he's allowing just to continue the move. This is more what you'd expect from these two markets on a number like this. So S&P down to a level, and we've seen it jumping between sort of 50s and 45 area now. It's still not getting this 5 year moving. That's why he's scaling this out reasonably quickly. You can see that it keeps sitting at the same prices and he just keeps feeding bids in. So he's dropped from about 120, 130 lots there. And now we're starting to tick up in the 5 year. Bund's still sitting at the low, and again, because it's struggled, you see him scaling out. We're now actually having to go at scalping it either way in the S&P. So he's only got one in on the S&P. He's out of most of the bunds because of the fact that they're not really moving a great deal at the moment. They've got down to levels that you'd expect. So we had a level at 10, we had a level at double O's. So they've got down to those levels. Now it takes a quick scalp to the upside. By taking these on with smaller size, it gives you the chance to sort of feel what the market's starting to do. So bunds now struggling, 99, so you're getting a little bit of bounce. Now it starts to go again through 99. We cannot get up above 01s. So the bunds remaining weak here. But it's a small size, so this is a more manageable size. And so now we're sort of waiting to see what the market does. Looking at the S&P, we're now getting down to levels in the S&P. 34 is a key level, and this is where we did the other week. You get that flush down in the S&P. There's the big flush down. And you see what happened there. When you got that flush in the S&P, he'd gone for around about a 3 lot around 33s, feel his way in. You got that exhaustion flush down, and he buys 20.
He bought 10 first and then he bought another 10 when you had the flush.
So yeah, you got that drop, buys 10 again. Because the fact that's an exhaustion type trade, that's the kind of thing that you're looking for for your reversal trade. So he's had a go at that first initial hit and hold, which is what he tried in the Bunds. What he's tried in the 5-year, struggled. The 5-year really struggled towards the lows. Got in around 15s and it never really pushed on side. So scaled out of the 5-year. S&P's now had that flush. This is the point where you think the reversal could well be on. So that's what's got him in. Scales quite quickly out of those 20, and so the idea is you're trying to minimise that risk that you've taken by buying down here in case it isn't the low. And like I mentioned in a debrief the other day, first area you're looking for back up to 34. So he's out 8 lots. Now it's a case of seeing if we can run it a little bit further. That Bund's going further and further offside, but it is just a 1 lot at the moment, so we'll have a look, see how he manages this. Now he's just scaling the S&P out as it continues higher. Trying to play that reversal trade and trying to just sort of let this run all the way back up. And what this has done by having multiple markets in play, it's allowed him a little bit of time to manage each different trade. Bund's continuing lower, the 5-year is now going again. We've got a bit of size on the offer as well in the 5-year. So he's actually now trying to join the size and sell more in the 5-year for that continuation. S&P started struggling around 34s, so that explains or validates the reason for scaling out towards that 34, the point that we blipped down from. Always worth a little scale from there. There we go, back towards the lows in the S&P, and this does quite often happen. You get that exhaustion trade, then the market tries it back towards the low. If you realise that, that's where you can then sort of try and have another go at this trade. Focus has shifted to the 5-year, more size going in at the low because we have now started to break down. You see quite quickly when it won't continue, it starts trying to scale out. We had 75 on a minute ago, we're now down towards 53. So we've taken quite a bit off quite quick. Keep scaling it. Once it goes offered at the low, then he's willing to try and have a go, get a bit more size in, because of the fact we're not getting that rotation back up. So he's got 20 offered at 14s now. S&P back towards the low, so we'll see if he has a go at buying this. That 5-year is now remaining right towards the lows here. Still though, like the way down, 5-year continually gets bought. Every new low, the bid comes back, the bid comes back, the bid comes back. Not seeing the same from the Bunds. You're certainly seeing a little bit more continuation. The S&P is now starting to tick back up, but all the focus is now on the 5-year. And this is where, by taking on other trades, he allowed himself to stay in that 5-year, despite the fact he was struggling. Size got reduced back down, and then as it started to show a little bit more movement, it started to go again. The size was put back in. Perhaps not back up to the levels it was to start with, but the size does then go back in, and then cover it as it starts to come off. This way, you save yourself from just taking a loss as soon as it starts going against you.